Hey horror fans, so like any good movie monster, it seems like Michael Myers isn't going to be staying dead for very long. According to Bloody Disgusting, which if you don't know, Bloody Disgusting is essentially the go-to name for anything horror, movies, TV, entertainment, etc. Bloody Disgusting is reporting that Miramax, the distributor of Halloween, is looking to shop the rights around to the highest bidder to see who wants to take on more Halloween movies and potentially television projects. As a die-hard Halloween fan, this gets me super excited and curious at the same time. Halloween has a long and storied history of being sold and bought by other companies, and it's just been a mess throughout the entire franchise's history. So today we're going to talk about who I think is potentially the highest bidder here and who will probably end up with the rights to Halloween, as well as what story directions I hope they go in or what story directions they potentially could be going down. Before we talk about who I think is the one actually buying the rights to Halloween, let's talk about the people that I think can be thrown out of the discussion. First of all, you got to throw out Disney and Warner Brothers just right off the bat. Neither of them are particularly keen on buying or acquiring anything right now. Both Disney and Warner Brothers are very much in save mode. Plus, Warner Brothers already has established horror franchises with the It franchise. We're getting that Welcome to Derry series. We've got the Conjuring universe. So they already kind of set with iconic horror IPs. I don't see them needing to reach into the bag and try and acquire another one. Now, another name in the streaming wars currently is Amazon. You can never fully rule them out. However, I don't think Amazon has ever really shown an interest in the horror genre. They just like producing mediocre action movies that we all kind of forget about after a little bit, and then way overspending on Rings of Power. One of the runners up, though, I think, had they not just, completed a Halloween trilogy in and of itself, is Universal / Blumhouse. Now, they just did the most recent Halloween trilogy directed by David Gordon Green, hence Halloween. I would say they were one of the front runners to get it, but it seems like they're totally content with letting the license expire and go to somebody else. They did their 3 movies, and it seems like from comments that they have made and Jason Blum, the head of Blumhouse, have made, it seems very much like, okay, we did our thing, let's move on to some other properties. And I would not be at all surprised if those other properties that they're moving on to is Friday the 13th, with those rumors of a new movie and TV show never really going away. I think they're trading one slasher for another, which to me means there's only one candidate left, and I think it's the strongest candidate and who I think actually is the one getting the rights to Halloween: Paramount. Paramount has been very gung-ho about horror in recent years. Movies like Scream 5 and 6 way over-delivered for them, and they even had some big surprises recently with Smile, which I did not think Smile was going to be anything good. I thought the trailers were terrible, and it's a phenomenal horror movie that scared the crap out of me. But also, all 3 of those movies made a lot of money. They are doubling down in horror, whether you like them or not. They recently hired Walter Hamada, who used to run DC over at Warner Brothers, and he left with the whole James Gunn shakeup and everything going on over there. He's now the head of a whole horror studio, like a horror division within Paramount. They are very serious about the future of horror. They're gonna keep doing more Screams. If you get the distribution rights to Michael Myers, that's a big feather in the cap of Paramount. I think they're going to move heaven and earth to try and get the rights to Halloween because they want to be known as the horror company. Now that we've established who I think is the front runner to acquire the rights to Halloween moving forward for a little bit, let's talk about the story directions that I think Paramount could be potentially going. First of all, it's an unlikely shot, but one that Halloween fans have been clamoring for a very long time, and that is a return to more of the anthology approach, a la Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It's actually what John Carpenter and Deborah Hill originally envisioned for the franchise, of stories set around Halloween but completely unrelated to each other, just one-offs. As much as I would love that, as a die-hard fan of Halloween 3, I think this is the least likely scenario possible, just because the branding and the recognition of Halloween is Michael Myers. That's why Halloween 3 Season of the Witch bombed at the box office. It's why Halloween Ends didn't really do as particularly well as people wanted, plus the fact it's not great, and I'm gonna die on that hill. People come to associate Halloween with Michael Myers, and that's totally fine. I would love an anthology approach to something. Malik Akkad, who is the producer for Halloween, he's actively wanted a Halloween 3 TV series for the longest time. I think that could be a really cool compromise. We get a Season of the Witch / anthology Halloween series on TV, but a new Michael Myers movie on the big screen. You gotta have that clear line of delineation there. I think Michael will always be on the big screen, but there's still future anthologies there. I don't think you completely rule it out, but movie-wise, I think we're just gonna stick with Michael for now. Another route we can go is a continuation of the trilogy that Universal and Blumhouse just wrapped up, also known as the Hollow Green trilogy, which I also see this as incredibly unlikely just because, mild spoiler alert here, you don't have Michael anymore. And his backup that they tried to pass off also isn't really around anymore. And a lot of the characters, their stories kind of get wrapped up. Plus, if Universal is not the one acquiring Halloween moving forward, I think whoever is getting them, whether it's Paramount, whether it's somebody else, whether it's A24, I've seen that thrown around there a little bit. I think they're going to want to put their own stamp of it, their own flavor, their own spin to it. I don't think they're going to want to be tied down to any previous connections or previous movies. You also got to figure whoever ends up with the rights to Halloween, they have other horror properties in their back pocket that they're hoping to add the Halloween to their already big library, whoever that may be. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm not saying I'm a fan of this idea, but I'm saying it is definitely an option that people might be considering from a business perspective. And that is Halloween crossovers. Like if Paramount buys them, I don't have faith that they would completely rule out a Halloween Scream crossover, as complicated and as canon breaking as that might be. I think from a business perspective, I think Suits will look to do like an Alien versus Predator or Freddy versus Jason all over again with Michael. There has been talk in the past of crossing over Michael with other characters. I think the most prominent one was a crossover with Hellraiser. Michael has always been pretty self-contained. There hasn't really been crossovers, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities from a business perspective. People going, huh, we've got this famous IP. We've got this famous IP. Let's merge them together. For the record, again, not a fan of this idea, but it's an idea that I'm sure is being bandied about somewhere. So brace for that potential possibility just in case. Probably the most niche idea out here, but as a diehard Halloween fan, I would totally be on board with this for the most part. So we've now followed the story of Laurie Strode quite a few times, the H2O timeline, the Hollow Green timeline. Well, what about her daughter, Jamie Lloyd? Bring back the timeline of Halloween 4 and 5 and I guess 6 if you really want to. I'm not a big fan of the Cult of Thorn storyline, but maybe just follow up Halloween 4 and that's it. Leave Rachel still alive, undo that mistake. Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5, has been very vocal about wanting to return to the franchise. She made a quick cameo in both the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, but she was very adamant about wanting to return for the newer Halloween movies, and they just couldn't come to terms. They said it wouldn't really work for the story that they're telling, which I can completely understand and respect that. She is a huge fan of the franchise. She's been loyal to the franchise for a really long time. I would love to see her return. I just don't know if it's on the books because it's a lot easier to sell the return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode to general audiences than for the diehard fans who love and adore Halloween 4 and 5 to go, well, we got Danielle Harris back. I think the general audience might be confused as to who that is, and it might be a harder sell. While it's not completely following the Universal Blumhouse trilogy of recent years, there's an idea that was brought up in Halloween Kills that could absolutely be the route that they go, and that is the flashback scene that they used. Holy crap, guys, that was done so perfectly. So basically, if you saw the movie, they just went back in time and followed up Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis the same night as that original 1978 classic, and they just continued that story a la Halloween 2, kind of, but just, you know, filmed nowadays. And the attention to detail that they brought to that was so perfect and so well done that it makes me go, why don't we just do that? A throwback movie, a Halloween movie made nowadays, but set in the late 70s and early 80s, with Dr. Loomis being the main character and hunting down the shape as he just kind of drifts in and out of places. You don't really need Laurie. Might even say you don't need Haddonfield. There's been good Halloween movies without Haddonfield. H2O doesn't really feature Haddonfield all that much. Just have a Dracula versus Van Helsing type story, except it's Michael versus Dr. Loomis. I would totally be on board with that. Have that retro time period, have that dark, grungy look, but not fully Rob Zombie-ify it. I think that could be a really fun, interesting idea, but probably the most likely idea and the most likely route that we're going with story direction is a full reboot/remake. I don't know if we're gonna go the Rob Zombie route of just tell it beat for beat, but something akin to The Force Awakens/Halloween 2018 of somewhat retreading it, but enough that whoever's making these movies can clearly tell that this is our stuff, this is our own spin on it, and we can kind of create our own new canon that we can tell future stories with. And I know that sounds wonky and crazy, but also at the same time, it's a Halloween movie. There have been so many movies in this franchise, and it's gone so many different directions. I honestly don't care. As long as we don't go to space, you can do whatever, because Halloween has just had so many wacky and crazy ideas that I'm on board for just about anything. But there's a lot of interesting routes that you can go. We started really strong with 2018's Halloween, then it kind of went off the rails there. I think just stick back with that of a creature, a shape in the shadows, stalking people and killing them. Whether that's a remake, a reboot, reimagining, whatever R word we want to use to retell this story, I think that's the most likely route, whether you like it or not. If it's not great, you still have the original, but I'm curious as to see what they do with it. I know the Radio Silence guys are available because they're not doing Scream 7, so just something to keep in mind. Well, what do you guys think? Who do you think is going to be the one that actually ends up making the next Halloween project? Do you think it's going to be a movie or TV show? Let me know down in the comments. And what storyline or story direction do you hope the next Halloween goes? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you see and want to see more, subscribe to the channel. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers. That's a huge goal of mine that I've always wanted to hit. So if you haven't already, subscribe and share with fellow movie or horror fans. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.